Mums with Hustle podcast, episode 482.
Welcome to the Mums with Hustle podcast, where you'll discover everyday mum entrepreneurs killing it in their industry. Learn the secrets you can replicate to create your own success with your host, Tracy Harris.
Welcome to the Mums with Hustle podcast, where we deep dive every single week into the realities of running a business and balancing life. I'm Tracy Harris. I'm your host. I'm your guide. And today's episode is one that I know so many of you can relate to. And if you can't relate because of your own lived experience to date, well, it's probably not too far off in the distant future. It's about one of the toughest decisions that we have to make as business owners, and that is letting someone go. Specifically, I'm going to share my experience of letting a virtual assistant go in the earlier years of my business and how hard that was for me in my leadership and how my worst fears actually came true in the process. It was a tough one. So let me set the scene for you, because many years ago now, in the earlier days of my business journey, I've been in business for 10 years now, but I did my first hire only 6 months into having a business. Now, I used the word business, but I didn't have anything to sell at that time. My hands were so full. Like, I was a new mum at the time. I was creating a brand from scratch. I was completely self-educated, self-taught, and then invested in my own mentorship and development. So, I had to study things and learn things and be in coaching communities and all of that as well. Like, it all takes from your time, right? So at about the 6-month mark, even though I was broke, I realized that I was going to make more progress in my business if I hired help. And it was really hard to hire someone and pay that person every single week when I wasn't even making $1 because I didn't even have a product to sell. I had no way of making money yet. So this was yet again another big investment in my business and in myself, but having that person join my team, become my first team member, really just meant that I had to now actually be the woman who keeps the promises she makes to herself. I had bought myself back time and space to create my first product. So anyway, that was my first hire. I'm just giving context for people that haven't listened to every single episode of the Mums with Hustle podcast. I know so many of you have. Oh my gosh, I love you. I'm so grateful. But I also know new people arrive here every single week. So I just wanted to give that context. And so what I'm talking about is a couple of years beyond that. So this is like, a couple of years into business. I had several people on my team at this point, and I was having to let someone go, having to let a virtual assistant go. And it was the first time. And I hated it. Oh my gosh, it was so hard. I realized that I had to make this decision because this VA who had been with me for about a year just wasn't meeting the expectations and the demands of my growing business. And I feel like, I know that there was just a little bit of like a values clash in terms of like workplace culture. And there are some things that when you hire people that you just can't teach them. These are things like core beliefs, ways of seeing and viewing the world, general behavior, attitude, character, values, those sorts of things. You need to hire people that already are a cultural fit, because when you don't, and in this case, I can say that this person was not a cultural fit, it's very hard to make progress with someone that is constantly almost in disagreement, almost like, oh, I don't like that, or why do we have to do that? Or, and you have to explain, well, because this is the culture of this company and this is how we do things. And baby entrepreneur Tracy didn't really have that much confidence to be able to just say that point blank. And so her pushback every single time was just frustrating to me, disheartening, zapped my little bit of confidence that I had as I was growing my business. And I just didn't feel supported by her. I didn't feel like I could count on her. And that's bad. Like when you have someone on your team and you don't really trust them, you don't trust that they have your back, that's not the sort of person that you want to have on your team. Now, since then, I've had the pleasure of working with so many amazing individuals for years on my team, many of whom are still there. And I also invest in myself, or we invest in ourselves, Carl and I, Carl being my husband. And we have a mentor when it comes to HR and really building out our organization with the right hires and, you know, even spotting gaps, like what is the next strategic hire that we need to make in our business? All of that. We've learned so much when it comes to putting out job applications, interviewing, vetting people. I could do a podcast episode on that, my gosh, but I can say that we've got it pretty dialed in when it comes to recruiting and leading in our team, and our company culture is so beautiful and amazing, but that's because we're attracting people that are the right fit now. But that was not always the case. So there you go. You have a little bit of context. But I knew it was time to let this particular VA go. And the thought of having that conversation filled me with absolute dread. I feared that she was going to take it personally. I was worried. If you said to me, Tracy, like, what's your biggest fear? I would have said, oh my gosh, she's going to cry. And she might not like me anymore. She might get really angry at me. So the day finally came. And actually, when I woke up on that day, I was not anticipating that that was going to be the day. Because I woke up, got ready, did the school drop-off thing, and I attended a mastermind call, a mastermind that I was in because, hello, all coaches need coaches and mentors. And so I was in this mastermind with 7-figure entrepreneurs and my mentor, and I had a hot seat. And in this hot seat, I shared with my peers, with my mentor, what my biggest challenge was at the moment. And it was feeling dissatisfied with this team member, unsupported, often frustrated, just like living in a loop of where, you know, something happens in the business. She doesn't want to handle it in the way that I wanted it to be handled. It was just clear that we were butting heads all the time, but she, at the same time, was a really lovely person and da-da-da. Anyway, I'm there. I'm confessing this situation to my peers and to my mentor, and they were like, you've got to let her go. And, you know, my mentor was just like, one rotten apple spoils the bunch. You got to let her go. She may be great in another organization, but she is not great in your organization. And the people that you hire need to be on board. They need to buy in to your vision. They need to be in full support of it, not arguing back every single time. They need to be deeply invested in the mission and wanting to move it forward, operating at their highest level. Like, it doesn't sound like you have that person in this individual, Tracy. You cannot drag dead weight. Oh my gosh. So my mentor and my peers who, I mean, this is the beautiful thing about placing yourself in a mastermind or just any business mentorship, is that there are people in these spaces that are sometimes further along than you in different aspects of business. So there were people that had already grown successful teams or had already been through this. And so they could really shed light and share tips on what helped them. And one guy in the mastermind was so lovely. I'll never forget, like, he even called me afterwards, after this mastermind call, And he was like, I just want to walk you through like a bit of an outline for the conversation that you're going to have with her. And I just appreciated that so much because it felt so scary and daunting to me as baby Tracy. Now, would I like to have to do this again, even though I'm not baby Tracy, even though sometimes I still feel like her? No, I would not like to do this again. I don't think that letting anybody go or terminating anybody's employment ever feels great. I don't imagine that there's a stage where you get to where it feels easy. But what I can say is I have had to let people go since, and it has not been like this. I can very much separate my feelings from the business, which has been a learning curve. But I also believe that there's a place for everybody out there, and it just may not be that this place is the place for everybody. Like, of course it's not. So yeah, the fear that I was going into this conversation with the first time absolutely had a hold on me. So after being coached in the hot seat with my peers and my mentor from this mastermind, they then said, you're going to do it today. You're going to take an action towards it today if you can't do it today, but something is happening, okay? So they were like, you're going to email her and you're going to set up a meeting. So I went off the mastermind call and I did. I sent her a message. I scheduled a call with her and spent hours before our meeting just rehearsing and preparing for what I would say. I wanted to be clear but compassionate. I wanted to be firm but kind. And when the call started, I could hear the nervous tension in my own voice. I took a deep breath and I began explaining the reasons for my decision, which in hindsight, I don't think I even needed to get into that. I was over-explaining. I was emphasizing also that this is a business decision, not a personal decision. But as soon as I started speaking those words, I saw her face fall because she knew what was happening. And her eyes welled up with so many tears. And she started to cry. And my heart just broke. Like my heart sank because this is exactly what I was afraid of. I didn't want to hurt her feelings. And that's because I'm just a classic people-pleasing, perfectionist good girl. Like, I did not want to hurt her feelings. But clearly I had. And she was hurt. And I think the worst thing is she did take it personally. She was hurt and then she was angry. And she was angry at me. So my worst fears were happening. She got angry. She got mad. She was telling me that I don't appreciate her hard work, her dedication, all these things. She went through all of the stages of grief and loss. Like, oh my gosh, it was just all of the things. It was a lot to be confronted with as a young leader of a company. It was a lot for me. It was a lot for her as well. And it was a nightmare unfolding right in front of me. So in that moment, I really did feel like the worst person in the world. And I tried to stay calm and compassionate and also just let her have her emotions and let her process and ask her questions. She wasn't really up for asking questions at that stage. She was just not dealing. And I was just, trying to bring the conversation back on track, explaining again why the decision was necessary for the business, but nothing I said seemed to make it any better. And she eventually just ended the Zoom call. Like, I'm pretty sure she hung up and I was just sitting there. And I was just left feeling a mix of guilt, sadness, and then also some relief that it was just done. But after that experience, I spent a lot of time reflecting on what happened. and what I could have done differently. So I wanted just to share that with you, because growing an online business is full of wobbles and mistakes and experiments, and you live and you learn. And I have lived and I have learned. I have experimented with so many things over the past 10 years, and I've done so many things wrong, but it's about learning from them. And when you know better, you do better. So here are some of the key lessons that I learned from this difficult situation, which I hope can help you if you ever find yourself in a similar position, whether it's a contractor. I know so many of you are working with contractors and VAs right now that you're not satisfied with and you want to let them go. And so I hope that me sharing all this with you helps to make that end just feel a little bit easier for you and the other individual. Okay, so the first thing that I learned is the importance of preparation. While I did prepare for the conversation to the best of my ability without having any actual experience, I realized that I needed to prepare more for the potential of the emotional response that could arise. You know, it's crucial to understand that no matter how well you articulate yourself, or maybe you give reasons, the person on the other end may just take it personally. And being mentally prepared for that can help you stay calm and composed. The second thing is that timing is everything. Choose a time when you can have a private, uninterrupted conversation. Not when your calendar is jam-packed with appointments and to-dos and errands to run and things like that. Like, it needs time. So make sure it's not during a particularly stressful time for them, if possible, because that can also help in managing the emotional impact of letting someone go. Next, be honest, but always lead with love and kindness. So transparency is key, but it's also important to approach these sorts of conversations with deep empathy and acknowledge their contributions and express genuine gratitude for their hard work, for their commitment. It doesn't mean that you're sugarcoating the situation, but showing that you do value them as an individual. And really, you just want them to end up in a space where their gifts and their talents are an asset in that organization, and where they can flourish, where their zone of genius is needed in that company. Now, one thing that I wish I had done differently is offering more support, if possible, providing resources or recommendations to future opportunities, or connecting this person with someone else potentially. This can help the individual see that while this chapter is ending, there are other opportunities and possibilities ahead. Another crucial aspect is following up. After the initial conversation, I reached out. To see how they were doing. And I'm really proud of that. Like, that, to me, that just showed that I do care about their well-being beyond the professional relationship. Now, in this instance, this individual was still deeply upset, but had come to acceptance. So I could have some kind of repair conversation there, and then lead and guide them into other opportunities. And finally, this is possibly the most important lesson that I learned. It's to be kind to yourself as the leader. Like, that whole experience set my nervous system, I don't know, at full tilt. So, like I said, letting someone go is never easy, and it's natural to feel a mix of emotions, but understand that you are making the best decision for your business. That's your role. And if there is someone on the team that isn't gelling with everybody else or is, not really a fit for the company culture and values, and that experience is then going to affect things for your customers, future clients, your members, people in your communities, like that's not right. Your job is to have the courage to lead, and leadership is often not easy. It means often not being the most popular, not being liked, not having your decisions always understood. I mean, we can try, but letting someone go, it's not easy. And we're going to feel those uncomfy feels in our belly. And I think that that's what makes us human. It's what makes us kind. So understand that you are making the best decision for your business. That is your role. And sometimes, often, tough decisions are necessary for growth. That whole experience taught me so much about leadership, because as leaders, we often question ourselves. And I spent such a long time reflecting on my own leadership and communication skills up to that moment and after it. And I wondered if I was clearer enough in my expectations at the very beginning, if I had been better at giving more honest, robust feedback in time and earlier in her onboarding, like if I had been a better mentor to this individual, could things have turned out better? I'll never know. I assume yes. But like I said at the beginning, if someone's not a cultural fit, it's very hard to change that. But this level of self-reflection for us as leaders is vital, because sometimes the issue does lie with us. And sometimes speaking up and improving our communication and not being afraid of a possible conflict, but addressing things head on is really important for our leadership development and skill development, but it's important for everybody else on the team. It's important for all of our customers and clients. So we need to practice that. Now, there's another aspect to consider, which is also our intuition. Looking back at this particular instance with this particular individual, there were several red flags early on that she may not have been the right fit for the role. And I tried to make excuses for her, and I ignored my gut. I ignored my intuition, which is something that I don't do now, or at least I'm very aware of my intuition, and I even consult my intuition intentionally. But I tried to make excuses for every single thing that happened or things that she did. And I tried to keep her around for way too long, thinking that the problems would be fixed with better communication from my side. But sometimes, despite our best efforts, some people are just not the right fit for the role or for the team. And that just is the truth. So learning to trust our intuition as leaders and then follow through on that is crucial. And in this experience, I kind of cut my teeth on that. And I'm grateful for it. But my gosh, it was hard at the time. It's so important that we recognize and we follow the signs, because right now, if something feels a bit off, then it probably is. And I realized that I should have let her go way sooner. And by holding on for too long, not only did it affect my business, but I also prolonged a situation that was likely uncomfortable for her as well. Like, there's no way that she wasn't picking up on the fact that, we weren't the right match for each other. So yeah, here are some early signs that someone might not be the right fit for your company or for their role that they're in within your company. Because sometimes you can just move someone into a different function of the business and then it's like, oh my gosh, you're so awesome. So, but here are some early signs and things that you can look out for. So sign number one is if an individual lacks initiative. Now, if your VA is consistently waiting for instructions from you and not taking any initiative, and you've communicated that you value their initiative and you give them opportunities to share their ideas, but they're not, then this can be a red flag. If you've not expressed that initiatives is something that you don't just value, but it's a requirement of their role, then you can't really be mad at the individual. So you've got to understand your part in it as well. Expectations plays a huge role. Now, a good virtual assistant should be, in my opinion, proactive and should look for ways to contribute without always being told what to do. Like, it's that whole, if you see something, say something. Like, at least say, oh my gosh, I noticed this. I feel that we should do this. Not sure if you've done that before, but I wanted to flag it with you. What are your thoughts? Like, having someone that can come up and initiate these sorts of conversations is going to be more valued in any business and company. So if you are finding that with your VAs, they're just lacking initiative, but you have that expectation of them that they do bring initiative, then you need to let them know that. And if you have let them know that, but you're not seeing this be practiced, then it is a bit of a red flag. I would address it. Number two is poor communication. Frequent misunderstandings or a lack of clarity in communication can also indicate a mismatch. You want to have clear, effective communication between you and each of the individuals on your team. It is essential for any role, especially remote work. Like, if we are not in physical workspaces with each other, then communication becomes even more important when your team works remotely. So looking at the tools and the frequency of communication and the style of communication, and maybe there's a structure to their Monday check-in, their Friday check-in, their daily check-in, like whatever's going on. Like, you as the leader need to set the expectation for that. You need to model it, and you need to hold people accountable to it by making sure that they are getting in touch at the frequency and in the way in which you require. So that's your job as the leader. Number three, red flag is a missed deadline. Like, consistently missing deadlines or delivering subpar work can be a sign that the person is either struggling to keep up with demands of the job, or if they're a contractor, maybe they're saying yes to more work than they can actually fulfill. And maybe they've said yes to working for you when really it isn't in their zone of genius or even in their zone of excellence, which is deeply frustrating. So they're missing deadlines. They've, kind of lied on their resume. It's time to let that person go. Number four is resistance to feedback. If you have someone on your team that is overly defensive or dismissive when receiving feedback, it's just going to hinder the ability for you to grow and improve as a team and as a business. In my opinion, again, it is essential that people are open and receptive to feedback. Not just positive feedback, but critical feedback, and wanting to improve and get better. So if they're not, like, you have the right to be like, that's not valued here, and, let that individual go. Number five is if they are a misfit in terms of the business or company culture. So sometimes, despite having the skills for a role, a person just may not align with the company's values or the company's culture. You need to get really clear on what your company culture is and what your company values are. I recorded a podcast episode not too long ago, a little earlier this year. Scroll up, look at the podcast roll, but having very clear and known company values and even using those, articulating those throughout the interview and hiring process is going to make sure that you're finding someone that is a cultural and values aligned fit. Because the misalignment, like I said, can create friction and affect overall team dynamics, and you don't want that. So if that's what you're experiencing, it's a bit of a red flag. It's very difficult to fix. So it may be a sign that you need to move on and let that person go. Number six is low enthusiasm. Now, a noticeable lack of enthusiasm or motivation or care factor can be a sign that the person just is not fully engaged or committed or passionate about their work. And it can impact their performance and the energy that they bring to their team. So if this comes up, I would address it head on and let them know and give them the opportunity to explain. But it is a red flag and it's not something that you want to ignore. And number 7 is repeated mistakes. Now, everybody makes a mistake, but if the same errors keep happening despite corrections, despite systems and processes being there, despite having the tasks be modeled to them and feedback given, then it may be a sign of a deeper issue, which really is their suitability for the role. So if that's happening, again, major red flag. Might be time to let that individual go. Oh my gosh. So yeah, leadership is not just about making tough decisions. It's about also learning from those decisions and growing as a leader. And it takes so many mindset shifts for all of us. So I hope that my story and these tips, if you're ever going to face this difficult situation, just know it's not easy, but I hope that me sharing my story and these tips helps, because it's going to come up and you need to be able to handle it with grace and with empathy. So just to wrap up, here are the steps that you can take to navigate the difficult task of letting a VA or a team member go. Number 1, prepare thoroughly. Number 2, choose the right time. Number 3, be honest but kind. Number 4, offer support. Number 5, follow up. And number 6, be kind to yourself. Well, there you go. I feel like that was a nice little sisterly chat, girl to girl chat, real talk. Because at the same time as trying to grow your audience, trying to create and launch these offers, trying to serve your customers, like you've got this added layer, this role of being a leader to your team or hiring the right people and giving feedback. And it's a lot that we juggle as founders. And obviously, we love our businesses. They give us so much opportunity and freedom, but that's not to say that it's easy. And at the same time as learning all the business stuff, you also need to invest in your own leadership development, which is what I share and teach inside of Freedom Filled Business. Go to freedomfilledbusiness.com to learn more, or email us hello@mumswithhustle.com to learn more. Or to express interest or ask about joining. But also, this is a lot of the stuff that we cover inside of my Inner Circle Mastermind. If you are a woman growing a digital business and you want to do so in a freedom-filled way, then we need to not be wearing all of the hats. And growing a team is a core function of a business like that. And so this is what we cover inside of the Inner Circle Mastermind as well, but at a much higher level. And so if you feel like you're interested in that level of mentorship and support in a much smaller boutique container, the Inner Circle Mastermind might be a great thing for you to just express your interest in and learn more about it. Go to innercirclemastermind.co. Applications and interviews for that commence at the end of October every year. And I'd love to hear from you if you're interested in stepping up into that space. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining me in this episode. I hope that it helps, whether you're going through this now or listening to this to be proactive about your future. It's been wonderful. And don't forget to hit subscribe on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and leave us a review. I'll see you here next week on the podcast. Bye.